the show. I literally haven't said that correctly one time. I will at some point. I am your host, Trevor May, zero-time All-Star, 10-year big leaguer, and I'm here to tell you about baseball stuff that's happening and has been happening for the last week. A whole bunch of news, especially going from yesterday to today. A bunch of guys getting called up. Bunch of all kinds of things are happening all over the place. Crazy games, crazy 3-homer games, guys throwing gems, all kinds of stuff. We will talk about that in the news after we get to our first segment. But before we even do that, I just want to thank everyone for all the support lately on both my Trevor May Baseball YouTube channel and here on Foul Territory. It has been incredible. Seriously, they've doubled the sub count in like 2 months, which is super generous and super impressive and super fun. So everyone over here at Foul Territory, thanks you for that. And keep on watching. Don't stop. Thanks. Tell your friends. Okay, let's hop right into it because there was one story about this topic and I was like, should I get into it? And then there was another story about the topic, and then there was another person that came up about this topic, and so now it's time. I cannot put up with it any longer. We got to talk about it, and that is, hello, here we go. Wow, button broke. All right, that is had a thing come unplugged. Jesus. That is wrong again. That is athletes on social media. Oh, good start. Let's get into it. That is athletes on social media. A lot of guys are coming out and speaking out about some not so great stuff they are hearing on social media after poor performance, and even sometimes after pretty good performance. This is also a subject I have a whole bunch of experience in. So let's get into this and talk about the story that prompted me wanting to talk about this in the first place. All right. This is Lance McCullers, and he recently had to get 24-hour security put on his family because of death threats after a very poor outing he had where he was unable to get out of the first inning. Now, if you remember about Lance, he has been hurt for like 3 years, okay? He had flexor surgery, he had Tommy John. It's been a long time coming for him to come back, so there's gonna be hiccups out of the gate, guys. People are rusty. If I tried to come back now, I'd be rusty. So to hear this type of stuff, first of all, fills me with anger because no one deserves death threats no matter what, not even unless. What I just say? I said unless. There is no situation where that should happen, okay? Fortunately, he had the support of Jim Crane and the Astros in order to help him take care of this. But this is not the first thing that we've heard about. There is one quote there's one piece of this story that I want to tell you about before I bring in some other examples here. But one of his two daughters, his oldest daughter, a 5-year-old, he's 2, overheard her mother on the phone talking to somebody about the threats, presumably trying to get logistics all settled out and figured out so that you can just make sure that everything's taken care of. And she was, understandably confused on what was going on, and she knew that there were threats being made, but she didn't know why or where. And when Lance came home from work that night, she goes, "Daddy, why are we being threatened? Who wants to hurt us?" And as a new parent of an 8-month-old, I can't imagine how that would feel. And that broke my heart. Absolutely just devastated me. And that is not something you should ever have to explain. It's sports, okay? We're gonna get in that. Like, I'm gonna say that a lot in this segment, but it's sports. But I want to talk a little bit about why this stuff happens and why our wires get crossed a little bit in terms of intent and how desensitized we become to this stuff. So I myself, though I receive very few death threats specifically, a lot of death threat adjacent, just horrible, vile stuff being said anonymously on the internet. But Lance is not the first guy or even the most recent guy to have to deal with this stuff. There's 2 Red Sox recently talked about it. Liam Hendriks has been told that people have said, hey, I wish the cancer would have taken you, because he again, a guy who was hurt for 2 years, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He had to battle cancer in the middle of this all, right, in the injuries. And he is understandably rusty as well. Oh, look, another guy who just had Tommy John surgery and is trying to come back and figure it out, getting death threats. Both of these guys have said that death threats have come their way to where they had to start, limiting their use of social media, which, is the obvious a solution. On those guys' same team, we also know about this that happened earlier in the season in Cleveland, where Jarren Duran, who recently was on the Netflix documentary that followed the Red Sox last couple of years, where he confessed that he attempted to commit suicide, to hurt himself, and that fortunately he didn't follow through or wasn't able to do it. But that is a courageous thing to talk about at all, and for someone to yell at you that they wish you just would have done it, I can't. Let's just put it this way. If you didn't see the video, he tries to go into the stands, as would, I think, any person on the planet. But that's just another example of something vile being yelled at a person as if they're not a person. But this was in real life, which is bold. And to be honest, I wouldn't take this guy on. That guy running after me. First of all, he's catching me pretty quick. Second of all, to feel comfortable enough to yell something like that to somebody is incomprehensible to me. But also quoted in this article, Christian Yelich basically said, yeah, this is totally normal. Everyone gets some sort of horrible thing said to them on social media every single day. It is not only the poor performers either. It's people who've been very successful in the past, maybe going through a little bit of a slump, and then they're getting decimated on social media. And he didn't have a specific reason or a specific thing. He's just like, I just know that this happens a lot, and I get it from time to time as well. So it's not an isolated thing. This is not Lance McCullers had this one weirdo being crazy. There's a lot of people going crazy about sports. And you guys are sports fans. Yeah, and presumably a lot of you guys may know a Knicks fan. Just putting that out there, right? It's a tough time to be a Knicks fan right now. And I'm sure there's been a lot of vitriol thought of by people who love their team. I'm just saying. So let's talk a little bit about what can be done in these situations, because this is something that I don't think gets talked about enough. Like, people are like, okay, so what do you do? Like, what happens in this situation? So first things first, every major league team has a security person, right? It's almost like you have a security officer when you were in high school or middle school. You have a person who is usually an ex-police officer or ex-military, or usually both, a combination of both. And it's their job to go, they're kind of like an air marshal with you. They coordinate with local law enforcement when things are a problem, make sure the hotel's secure, all that kind of stuff, just basic stuff. But whenever there's an issue, your security officer is the person you go to first. And then they they utilize the rest of the league's resources as well. So if you're on the road, they connect with the other team's security officer, and then you get local security up. They reached out to them. One of the option was get a security team to take care of McCullers and his young family. Jim Crane was like, I'm going to pay for that. I'll get that taken care of. So that was all done using the security services, which this has been around for a really long time. They do great work. They never get any accolades. They never get any recognition. They never get anything. They just and that's kind of the point. They kind of work behind the shadows. But it's a really great resource to have if there's ever an issue or like, people have had stalkers before and stuff. You can imagine any sort of person who's on TV a lot has to deal with a lot of this stuff. Fortunately, major sports have this as a resource. But the only other way to really protect yourself against this specific thing is to just leave social media, which I have talked about quite a bit in the past, because I have tried to do it a couple times and it did not go as the way I wanted it to go. But there's been a lot of players who've done it. For example, Riley Green here, leave social media. He just deleted the whole thing after getting some death threats, after kind of having a slow start last year. He's like, you know what, I'm done with this. I know specifically in 2021, right when I went over to the Mets, that Pete Alonso decided that he's only going to have like a business account that's run by his manager, but it's not going to be something that he is regularly checking, okay? And I think that served his mental health quite a bit. I can't imagine what this offseason would have been like for him, trying to figure out where he's going to play when people are just chirping in his DMs all the time. So a lot of people are just leaving social media. I've always said that sucks because I think one of the coolest things about social media is being able to connect with your athletes, being able to actually feel like you can say something and they'll hear you and interact with you. And 98%, 99% of interactions are positive for most guys. But if you're in constant fear of that one time where you're just going to get decimated on the internet, which is something that I thought about way more than I should have. When I struggled, I was like, dang, I'm really disappointed in myself. And then the second thing was, oh, I'm going to get destroyed on the internet because I'm so on the internet. Like, look what I do now, right? A lot of that was to get here. But I really wish I didn't have to go through some of that stuff. Specifically, in 2019, this is something I've never talked about publicly yet, and I've kind of come to the realization of what was going on. But in 2019, I gave up this home run. So that is Dom Smith. That is the last curveball I ever threw. You can see we have a one-run lead, and now we don't have a lead, and I am so mad. My parents were there. My family was there. Kate was there. We ended up getting absolutely destroyed for the rest of this game. We got beat 14-4. So this became a joke later in my career, but I can tell you I was so emotionally charged that day that I just wanted to quit, which I actually tweeted this later. I'm off Twitter for a bit. Love you guys. Happy memeing. And I remember being like, I have to get out of here because I'm worried about it. And I was getting a lot of hate. I was getting a lot of people in DMs and stuff because I like to keep my DMs open because I like to talk to people about baseball. Unfortunately, I had to get out of there because it was just a lot of people disappointed in me. And this was Minnesota. People are very, very nice in Minnesota, and I didn't have to deal with it. But I remember specifically being like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to run away. And I think this is kind of encapsulates a lot of the things that I had going on with anxiety. I was just like, it's not the platform's fault. I got to be clear here, or even the heckling itself. It was a me thing. But the problem there, I have a loose earbud. I'm so sorry. It is bothering the crap out of me. It might be fixed now. I struggled a lot with it, and I think that I let that stuff bother me a lot more than it might have bothered other people, but that's not to say that you should have to take it either. And so it was always a really tough thing for me to deal with and juggle. Like, in reality, it was like, what is the pros and cons of being here? And I was always on the fence because I have and had such great interactions with people on the regular. So, that's just something I distinctly remember. I remember going out with my parents after this and being like, just like really embarrassed by my appearance that day, and thinking that everyone thought I sucked in the restaurant. Nobody cared, including my family. Nobody cared but me. But it's just one of those life and death things. And that's a mild example, but I know. I have experience with this, okay? So why do people do this? And let's talk a couple about, this is gonna give me a great opportunity to maybe get into some things that I haven't had the opportunity, but why does this happen regularly? Well, comments, for example. Just the commenting situation in general. The ability to comment on somebody, anything, all the time. This isn't just sports, but this is what, in the context we're talking about, is maybe maybe the worst thing that ever happened to society. Like just the unfettered, just say whatever you want side of things, as if that's like a law of nature that you should be able to comment anything you want on anything. I think that is. I don't think it's the posting per se. It's the mostly just being able to comment on anything. So just imagine, like, you're at home, or if any, there might be rocket scientists out there, but if someone's posting about, I don't know, developing a rocket technology, and I just get on there and yell at how they're an idiot and they don't know anything about anything, what are the consequences of that? And the answer to that question is there aren't any. And that's why I'm bold. Things happen where we get to the point where there's death threats. Is like, nothing's gonna happen to me no matter what I say. When you feel that way, the worst comes out in people. I think we've seen that over time. For forever, honestly. Commenting is one. But another interesting part of this is the resurgence of betting. Now, I understand there's a lot of shows, including the network I'm on right now, that does betting sponsorships. And I want to be very clear here. This is not a comment on any betting organization, company, or anything that does their job. That's a whole nother thing to talk about. But there is an understanding we have to have here. Because, Riley Green specifically, but a lot of guys, it used to be fantasy baseball, and then it became betting. It was what was being mentioned in our DMs when horrible stuff was said, is like, you ruined my parlay, you messed up my, I had everything but one, and you messed it up because you gave up the lead. I wish, it's a horrible thing, expletive. And the idea is, if you think about it, people are fanatics for sports. There's a lot of you that are fanatics for baseball. It really bothers you when your team messes up or doesn't win. But then you add monetary effect to you to that. Of course, it amplifies those emotional feelings one way or the other, whether you're excited that you won and that they won, or you're very mad because they lost and you lost. So you're actually losing and they're losing in that situation. Of course, that makes it much of a stronger feeling than it would have been. That's just logic. But there was actually a study done on this stuff, one very interesting out of Xavier. Now, I think I have it, yes. The article was called Game-Changing Innovation or Bad Beat, How Sports Betting Can Reduce Fan Engagement. So this is actually from a business standpoint. I thought this would be a cool thing to talk about. So if you think about it, and I always thought this as well, was if you add that extra layer of engagement, people will engage more thoroughly. I always thought that was true. Like, I thought that would, if that's something you did a lot and you felt more involved in the game, then you would stay more involved with that sport more often, which is really interesting. Like, that premise makes a lot of sense to me. These people did a study out of Xavier. These people being, let me make sure I say their names. It was in the Journal of Business Research. It was Dr. Ashley Blank, Dr. Catherine Loveland, and Dr. David Houghton. They're right here in the list right there. And they basically wanted to know, does the betting element add more engagement? And it was actually not what they thought it would be. It said, instead of, we find that when fans lose a bet, positive emotions and subsequent fan engagement decrease, obviously. So if you have a bet on something and it's your team, for example, and it doesn't go well, then but say you lose your bet, but they win, you're getting less enjoyment from that win. So the liking sports part is getting diminished one way or the other. It overrides that, which isn't great. It also says this effect holds for both moneyline bets and performance and prop bets not tied to performance. So both types of bets, it comes out that way. In addition, we find that when fans win a bet, fan engagement does not increase either. Together, these results suggest that sports betting can be detrimental to fan engagement. So from a business standpoint, it might not make sense either, which is really interesting to me, right? Because I thought that was why. So if we're getting these detrimental effects, maybe it's something worth talking about and looking at. And that's important for me to think about because I have skin in the game. I know people who are getting fear. Their families are being threatened over something as trivial as this. But under that whole umbrella, let me give you one last kind of way of looking at this to make it to even it out a little bit. Because if you went and looked at any comment section or any DM or anything with a person that you don't know in real life, if there was an ability, if there was like a meter on the side that said how serious this person is, with like a 1 out of 10 being they're just trolling to troll, with a 10 out of 10 being they really believe the things they're saying, if you went and just looked at any comment section, that number would vary wildly. There's people in there that are bots. There's people in there that don't actually care. They're just instigating. There's people in there that truly care about the thing they're saying. But once you see how wildly that stuff fluctuates, you realize how that vibe you're getting probably isn't real. And it's hard to constantly do that. That's something each human being needs to do on their own. But that would be helpful in realizing if people threatening you is real or not. Unfortunately, when we get to this level, to bring it all the way back to Lance McCullers, you have to take it seriously, because if you don't, there could be dire consequences, and that's where we're at. So stop it. Have some personal accountability. We talked about this a lot. Take some accountability for the things that you do and say, and everything takes care of itself, baby. Now, do I have an opinion whether or not we should keep going the way we're going? I think that there is very little that can be done about that at this point, but I do believe there are personal guide rails that people can do to protect themselves, and I hope that these guys are taking care of themselves. So if you are a person that feels the need to yell at a professional athlete that they should hurt themselves or their family, or that you are going to, don't. Because that's soft as warm butter. Warm butter is great for bagels, but not for people, okay? That is my opening monologue. It pissed me off, and I wasn't gonna go through the day without mentioning those things. Okay, sorry to go so heavy right here out of the show, but frustration is at a level 1,000 over the weekend, reading these things and getting into this and researching this stuff. So I would love to know what you guys think. Down in the comments on the YouTube video and in the chat if you were here live. All right? Without that, let's get into some more exciting stuff. Let's get into the news. How about it? All right, let's get into some heckin' news. Quite a few things happen here going into the final week of spring training as we get ready. News. I'm going to try to develop my skill at getting quickly through these things and just hitting them. All right?
Let's get into the news.
So our first little piece of news here. Hello. There was a great piece of content I saw on Instagram. David Sampson, a journalist from the CBS Sports, went on the Pablo Torre show and posed this question: should the World Series be played at a neutral site, rotating like the All-Star game? Now, trust me, I know a lot of you are going to have strong visceral reactions to this, but hear me out. Hear me out. He was speaking from a business sense, and he likes it for a few reasons, right? One, neutral site allows you to not need to do all the travel, so all the days off and stuff can be less, right? All the travel wear and tear on the players, the teams, and the fans can be a little bit easier, right? You can stay in the same place for a long period of time. That is a pro. I would say that's a pro, right? I understand that home field advantage is a much bigger pro in the other way, but that is a pro. Two, the reason the Super Bowl entire presentation is so great is because they have so much time to prepare in advance, and baseball can't do that. They don't know who's going to be in it until a few days before, so it's just kind of baseball. They can never do anything bigger than the way they would normally do in regular season, and I'm very interested in knowing what else could we do if we had more time to prepare and build the apparatus and build around the place. Also, you can rotate it so World Series are in cities that never have had one before. That is also an interesting idea to me. But that's kind of where the pros end. The cons are obvious, right? One, no home field advantage. The fans deserve a home field advantage. The home field thing is important. Having the stadium filled with mostly one fan type from side to side, that is a big advantage in baseball, and I believe that is part of what makes the game special. So that's probably a no from me, dog. Though I am interested, just from a business standpoint, in the neutral site thing, just because there are some interesting things you can do with that, but it will turn into a corporation fest, probably, just like kind of the All-Star game does, and maybe we keep it there. Fortunately for you guys, this was a poll on my Instagram community. That is Mayday Baseball is Alive. Join it if you're not in there yet. That's TrevMay65 on Instagram. And this is what you guys thought. Yeah, you agree. I believe, what's that say? 454 of the 500 of you said nah. So it's about 90%. Yeah, about 88% of applicants said no. So I think one's. I think we're good. I think we're good. I don't think we need to discuss this no more. But I thought it was an interesting premise. I don't want to bring it to you. All right, news. This is Cal Raleigh. You may have heard of him. He now has 23 home runs, and Randy Arozarena also singled home a game-winning run in the ninth inning to give a 2-1 victory over the Minnesota Twins on Sunday, taking them one game ahead of the Minnesota Twins in the standings. But that's pretty impressive. Cal Raleigh, 23 home runs. It is June. He is on pace for 50-something? I don't remember the last time a catcher hit 50-something. I don't think a catcher ever has hit 50-something, but he is turning into quite the legend. Raleigh walloped a curveball in seventh from starter Chris Paddock, who had thrown a very good game up to that point, and finished 8 really strong innings, which he needed really badly. And he also struck out 10 along the way. But Cal Raleigh is the first Mariners player with at least 10 home runs in each of the first 2 months of the season since Nelson Cruz did in 2016. The catcher became the first Seattle Mariner to do it back-to-back months since Alex Rodriguez in 1999. What? Anytime you share a record with Alex Rodriguez, I think you're doing pretty good. All right, so Cal Raleigh, keep on swinging it, playa. Garrett Crochet absolutely shoved, striking out 12 in 7 innings as the Red Sox blow past the Braves 3-1. Trevor Story also hit a 3-run double to score all 3 runs and that's all Crochet needed to take them to the finish line. Crochet's hitting a little bit too. That's another positive for that group of guys. And Crochet's looking like that ace that they paid for, and he's currently tied with Mackenzie Gore for the lead league in strikeouts with 101. I will drink to that. Water. It's water. Just water. Moving on. Max Muncy, 3 home run game, 18-2 win over the Yankees on Saturday. Then they dropped the final game to the Yankees on Sunday, but we're not talking about that one. 7 RBIs, though. Keep it, a little grain of salt. One of them was on off a position player. So, not a great day for Will Warren. He needed 39 pitches in the first after giving up 4 runs, and then the Muncy then took him deep for his 200th home run. The Yankees are really good, and so are the Dodgers really good. And can there be a repeat World Series matchup? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Moving on. Jack Caglione, I repeat. No, sorry, I said it incorrectly. God, I thought I had this. Jack Caglione has been called up by the Kansas City Royals. The 2-way prospect out of first rounder out of University of Florida is now going to be in the show. The 6'5", 250-pound unit is coming up, bringing his 15 AAA home runs to the big leagues. He's coming up for a team that is really struggling to score any runs. So, one thing to pay attention to: how much does Jack press here at the beginning, because it's a team that desperately needs offense, but he is a 22-year-old that is going to be really excited about trying to hit home runs in a park that's not easy to hit home runs in, so just pay attention. But watching that guy walk out on the field is intimidating enough because he's an absolute monster. Aren't you 6'5", 250? Actually, I'm 6'5", 270 in not good weight. So, Jack Caglione. It's also, don't be surprised if you're reading his name, there's a random N in the middle. Right before the own part, there's an N. It says none at the end. Don't pronounce that N. You're welcome, all right? Moving on. Not so good news. Corbin Burns came out of his recent start with some elbow discomfort, forced to leave the game top of the 5th when he felt tightness in his elbow. Not a good sign. He said there was no one pitch. It just kind of slowly built up over time, and is going to get an MRI today. He might have already had it done to determine what actually is going on. When asked for his level of concern, Diamondbacks manager Torey Lovullo said he was going to remain optimistic, but said his concern was not minimal at this point, which means no. When the training staff came out, you could see his lips moving. That is Corbin's lips moving, and said, "My elbow's done. It's dead." We have that for you right here. We might need John Boy to help us out with this one. My elbow's gone. It's dead. That was dang. I don't like that at all. So I'm hoping for the best, but that looked like a resigned Corbin Burns, and for a fourth place Arizona Diamondbacks team that is trying to claw back into the playoff race here because they are still pretty good. Losing your ace is not a good thing, especially if it's going to be for a year. So hopefully, thoughts and prayers, obviously, and hopefully. I'm thinking about you, Corbin. I hope you're all right. I hope it's nothing. I hope it's a little flexor guy and you get to get back out there. Sometimes it is, but that didn't give me a lot of hope for the future. But a little bit more of a positive thing. Chris Sale, fastest ever to 2,500 strikeouts. Gumby is ridiculous. We used to call him Gumby because he's absolutely made of rubber. Just look at his mechanics here. The guy was not hurt for like his first 9 years in the big leagues. So fastest ever to reach 2,500 strikeouts as he took down the Philadelphia Phillies 9-3 on Thursday night. Out dueling Zach Wheeler, who had a little bit of a struggly day. Edmundo Sosa ended up being the 2,500 strikeout, and he did it in 2,026 innings. So here's a quote from Sale. I love reading these. "I appreciate it for what it is, but I try not to get too caught up in stuff like that right now. I know what our job is, and no matter whether you have a good one or a bad one, the next one is the most important one." Well said. I hope that he just said that to the media and he's actually celebrating in the background, because one of my biggest regrets when I played baseball was not actually celebrating the things that I did well enough, and constantly always just looking forward to the next thing. Just ask Shaq. He can't stop because he just can't enjoy things. His words, not mine. He joins three other guys that are currently in the big leagues with over 2,500 strikeouts. The other three are, as you know, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, and Justin Verlander. What a group to be a part of. So congratulations, Chris, on that. And finally, the Major League Baseball is purchasing an equity stake in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. They also run a volleyball league and a basketball league, I believe. Partnering with the fledgling league as it prepared for first 4-team season, plans to expand to future years. This is a professional softball league. My sister was a 4-year college softball player who might have been able to play beyond college had she stuck with it, but it wasn't an option at that time. So I think this is awesome because a softball player, there are some stud softball players. The chick from, I think, Oklahoma, who's hit like, I don't know, 7,000 home runs, and she gets walked with the bases loaded like Barry Bonds, she could play. And I really want to see her play. For the MLB, now owns more than 20% of the league, which I think is amazing. So, and women's professional sports has recently passed $1 billion in revenues across all of them. We can thank the WNBA for that. So I love that investment is being put where it should be put in growing markets. And honestly, softball's electric. There's a chick throwing 107 billion miles an hour, breaking records. It's tough. If you ever need to know how hard softball is to hit, just go watch Jenny Fitch just absolutely destroy Albert Pujols. That's on YouTube if you want to see it. And that is the league. That is everything that has happened around the league. That is the news. And before we get into our mace-plaining for the day, I want to show you a little. We got a little CTA from our friend AJ Przinsky over here at the main headquarters. Let's see what he has to say.
Scott, you need to check out this Roback hoodie I have. It's 85 plus degrees here in Florida. Look, lightweight, feels great, cool colors, perfect for those hot Florida days.
I agree, AJ. Color looks fire. And you can get your own sweatshirt, polo, hoodie. Go check out Roback. And if you do and you're a first-time customer, Roback.com using the code FOUL gets you 20% off your first purchase. RHOBACK.com, code FOUL. Get after it, FT fam.
Thank you guys so much. Make sure that you go back in the video and catch that QR code if you didn't. All right, we are into our main topic of the day. It is mace-plaining. We are going to talk about the DFA. Type a 1 in either chat if you know what a designated for assignment means. If you know everything that goes along with it, or you just know that it means that guy's not on the team anymore, let me know in the chat. Because there has been some DFA merry-go-rounds and some interesting things happening in baseball with this mechanic. It is pretty wild what these guys have to go through, and I have some personal friends going through it right now as well. Did I spell assignment wrong? Yes, I did. That's an M. Boop, boop, boop. I'm a one-man show here, guys. Leave me alone. All right, let's get into it. The reason I was interested in this topic is because of this man. This is Casey Lawrence, and he has been DFA'd and then picked up by the Seattle Mariners 5 times. He's also thrown almost 90 innings for the Mariners, but he has been DFA'd by them almost 10 times in his career, which is a pretty interesting thing on its own. And it's interesting. So he's 37 years old. He keeps getting really short stints where they pitch him for a couple innings in low leverage when there's a blow up or they just need some pitching help. Then he gets DFA'd. He goes back down to Tacoma. He hangs out for like a week. They call him back up because they need another spot. And the merry-go-round continues. Now you may be wondering, why don't they just option him? He doesn't have any options. So I will explain this in just a moment. But in this last round, they actually optioned Blaze Castano and designated catcher Blake Hunt, both of which, but then they designated DFA, so another guy got DFA'd as well for him to go up, a AAA catcher who had yet to make his first big league appearance, but he was on the 40-man roster. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what a DFA is. Okay, so this is the definition of DFA, and I'll read it to you right now. In Major League Baseball, designated for assignment means a player is removed from a team's 40-man roster. I'll pause there. The 40-man roster is the 26 guys in the big leagues, and then it is 14 additional guys that are either on the injured list or on the injured list that is less than 60 days. So if they're on the 10-day injured list or whatever, they have to stay on the 40-man, and you can't take them off. But if they go to the 60-day, meaning if they have Tommy John, you can put them on the 60-day, extend them, and they won't take up a 40-man spot, but they're not pulled off of it, right? So you have a couple guys, they got 3 or 4 guys on that list, on the basically reserve list, and then 40 other additional people. The 40-man roster, you have to be put on it after your 5th year in the minor leagues, or you go into the Rule 5 draft. So that is the two things. They can protect you, or you go in the Rule 5 draft. I talked about that in the past. So we're talking about the 40-man roster, so that's why sometimes you see guys who are not in the big leagues get pulled off of it, okay? Also, your minor league pay increases a lot if you're on the 40-man versus if you're not. So, moving on, but not immediately released or traded. Okay, so nothing happens immediately. You go into what we call DFA limbo. It's the worst place on the planet. It's very similar to all the other limbos that have been in myth and in lore. Imagine if you're waiting to go across the River Styx in Hades, that is what this is, okay? The team has a period to decide the player's future, which could include trading them, placing them on waivers, releasing them, or even reassigning them to the minor leagues. And there's all kinds of little things you can get the longer you play that make some of those things happen or not happen. But in Casey Lawrence's case, he takes his assignment every time. So he sits, you have up to 7 days to make a decision on one of those 3 things and decide where that guy's going. You may be wondering, what happens to that guy? Give me 1 second. I have a nice little flow chart for you guys to understand a little bit more. So you're removed from the 40-man roster. You go into limbo. That's where you are here. In those 7 days in limbo, they need to either trade you, so they can work. So basically, they put you on waivers. You get DFA'd. Every team knows that you're DFA'd now, so they know that team is willing to make a trade. That's why you see a lot of like, this guy gets traded for cash. That is a lot of what happens. They pick you up without having to use a waiver claim. Then we have placed on waivers. So how waivers work is there's this draft and there's this order, and you have to use waiver claims like a currency. So like you go to, if there's other teams that can claim them before that very clearly need a guy like that, you're not going to get him. So you would rather trade for him with some cash, usually. So that's why trades usually happen. It's so you don't have to use your waiver claims just in case it's needed later, okay? Or they get placed on waivers. So someone claims them, like I just said, or nobody claims them. They're on waivers, nobody claims them, and they get outrighted to the minor leagues. So then they just go be on a minor league contract with the team they're still with. So those are the three main things that happen, okay? There is one caveat with outrighted. For example, a guy, Adam Ottavino did this the last time he was DFA'd and outrighted. They said, we're gonna outright you. Do you accept your minor league assignment? Because he's a veteran, he doesn't have to, he can just say, I'm gonna be a free agent, I'm gonna leave. He doesn't have to accept it. Because he's a veteran, he doesn't have to accept it. He didn't accept it, he tried to get picked up by another team. That is the other thing that can happen. So those four options are the things that happen with DFAs, okay? Where are the people during these DFAs? Well, recently, a good friend of mine, Tomas Nido, who was with me with the Mets, was DFA'd by the Tigers. You know what he's doing? Nothing. So you can't go play, you can't go to the minors, you can't go do anything. You don't even know what city to go to. So most guys just sit in their apartment for a week, waiting for someone to tell them what their career is gonna look like from now on. That sucks. That sucks. So not only do you not know where you're gonna live, you have a family with you, you gotta figure out where to move your stuff, you gotta figure out like where you're gonna go, where you're gonna live and stuff. It's hard enough having to do that quickly. It's even harder when you don't know where those things will be. So that's kind of how it works. Now there's one situation where it's positive, and that's taking the free agent route, right? Sometimes you're just getting DFA'd because there's a roster crunch. Someone's coming off, like one of the best players on the team is coming off of a long-term surgery and they need that spot back, and you're just struggling and you're older and you're there on a one-year contract or whatever, but you're still good enough to be in the big leagues. Your team's just really good and there's nowhere to put you. There's no way to protect you because you've been around so long that you've so much, they can't do a lot with you, so they have to do one or two things. So taking your outright, they'll just be like, hey man, we don't have a spot for you, but there's another team that will probably take you. They'll just take their free agency, they get picked up right away, then they go to another team, right? It's like being claimed without the team having to use the claim, which also could hurt you if they have to use a claim on you. If they don't, then maybe they'll pick you up. So that's the one benefit. That's the one thing that could work out when you know you're good enough to be in the big leagues. There's just no spot for you on the current team you're on, then that would make sense. That's rare though. That is a small percentage of total situations, and but it has happened, and I know guys who have been like, oh yeah, I got to get out of here, guys. I wish I could stay on this team, but it's just not in the cards, and they go. Fortunately, I was never DFA'd, but I'm sure if I played 1 or 2 more years, it would have been on the table. So that is like the one situation where that happens. So this sucks. This whole situation is the worst. It really is, because you guys know, if living with uncertainty sucks, right? Like, I don't know if I'm gonna have a job in a week. I don't know if this is gonna happen. I don't know where we're gonna live. I don't know if we can pay our rent. It's a microcosm of a lot of those things, especially when it's like your lifelong dream. It's playing baseball. There's only really a couple places you can play and really make a living and support your family. So if you've been playing for a while, like going and playing in the Mexican League is only an option if you're only going to be, if you think you're going to get picked up in the next month. If you can do it for a month, but doing it for a whole season and supporting your season, like if that's all you're going to have for the rest of your life, your career, you just don't play anymore because it's not sustainable. That league is not for, independent league, same thing. It's not for sustaining your life. It's for getting you an opportunity to play at a higher level again. So there aren't a lot of options, and going backwards is really, 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 really hard sometimes. But also, if you have kids and a wife and a family, like, and just being like, everyone's like, hey, what are we doing? And you're like, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So I want to give you a prime example of somebody who did this for us, the Mets, in 2021, and that I'm so happy I got to play with the guy, but also the way he handled it was like a true champ, knowing what was going to happen. By the end, we were joking about it. So, Mets fans in the chat, you may know or remember a man named Jared Eickhoff. So, in 2021, Jared Eickhoff was called up and DFA'd by the New York Mets 5 separate times. Let me take you through that timeline. On June 20th, 2021, he was brought up from Syracuse. Then he made his Mets debut that day. He threw 4 innings, gave up 0 runs, threw really well. He was then designated for assignment that night. So he was up with us for 1 day. We're like, well, crap. He went through, wasn't claimed off waivers. Also, like for those first 4 days, he's a starting pitcher. He threw 4 innings. He can't pitch for another 4 days, right? So he just gets to go throw into a couch or something, play catch with his wife. That's real. They'll go to the parking lot of their AAA stadium. They can't go in yet, so they just play catch with their wife. So I've heard of that happening. So then he's DFA'd later that day. 2 days later, 7 days after that, he is reselected by the Mets from AAA. So he gets DFA'd. He's on there. He makes 1 start. He gets reselected. He pitches against the Braves, throws 3 1/3 innings, gives up 10 runs. He was then DFA'd directly after that game. So he's been in the big leagues for three days. Okay, gets DFA'd. 11 days after that, he comes up again in Cincinnati. He is reselected. He pitches for us against Cincinnati. And then he stays with us for about a week at that point because we were hurting. I remember Rob Stock tore his hamstring. A bunch of guys were going down all over the place. We're like, we can't get rid of Eichhoff yet. And then he is DFA'd once again on July 20th, 9 days later. And then on August 13th, he's called up again to fill in a spot. He throws 2 innings, struggles, and gets DFA'd again. So he gets DFA'd 4 times in one season. Actually, he gets DFA'd 4 times in 2 months. He's DFA'd 4 times. He gets reselected 4 times. He pitched in 5 games over those times and had an 8.69 ERA. So 2 things here. 1, how can you get ready to pitch at a high level when that's what's happening to you? And 2, once you go to the big leagues, struggle a little bit because you need a little bit of continuity to get going. Are you going to get many more opportunities? No. And in Jared Eichhoff's case, he didn't get much more opportunity after that. But us as a team, the guys who were there every day, I can't say enough for guys who go do this. They just swallow it. They take it like a man. They just wear it, and they do their best, and they don't complain. Jared Eichhoff is one of those, so I'm going to give him some love for that. He was like, yeah, man, this sucks. Like, he was like, obviously, like, yeah, like, he wasn't complaining, though. It was more like, we were like, dude, this sucks. We're sorry. And he's like, yeah, it does suck, but, like, it's what you got to do. And I don't think a lot of people handle it that way. It is not usually that handled that well. So not knowing where you're going to be in a week is hard enough, but adding the fact that you don't know if you will ever get another opportunity, it's even worse. But as the old saying goes, in conclusion, hang with them, man. Hang with them. It's baseball. You just sling your cleats over your shoulder and you go find another diamond to play on, and cross your fingers and hope that the powers that be give you as many opportunities as you can get. And that is designated for assignment. So if you're ever wondering, if you're ever out there like, hey, oh, he got DFA'd, we're not going to see him again. Well, there's a chance that he is just in his apartment waiting to get called back to the team, or he just went to AAA. So in the case of Casey Lawrence, if you're a Mariners fan, you're like, how does this guy keep appearing on our team? Doesn't he keep getting released? He's not getting released. He's getting DFA'd. Getting outright released means that you are not affiliated with a team at all. That is a different thing. So hopefully that gives some clarity, and hopefully you can think about it. It gives you a little context on what some of these guys are going through. So that if a guy comes up and does pitch well, which Casey Lawrence has been doing in this situation, it's even more impressive with all the crap you have to deal with. The fact that you don't have a bed that you normally sleep in or a suitcase that ever gets unpacked. So hats off to Casey for dealing with it and doing his job and doing it to the best of his ability. Thoughts? Good. All right. So we have about 11 minutes here on the Foul Territory Network to finish up our segments, which means we can get into our player breakdown. We're going to go going deep. We're going to talk a little bit about a guy who I think a lot of people are concerned about. And I have seen a lot of questions, both in the Discord and on all of my social posts about this guy. So I thought it was time to get into them. But without further ado, we're just going to go deep. See you in a moment. Going deep. Hello. Oh, this is turned off on all these. Hold on. Going deep. We're talking about Sandy Alcantara today. Sandy, the ex-Cy Young winner, 2022 Cy Young winner, has been struggling this year. And I thought it would be a good time to dive in and see what exactly is going on with Sandy Alcantara. Okay? We have kind of a process we go through here on this segment. So first, let's establish who's Sandy Alcantara and why is it so crazy that he has struggled. Now, I just mentioned he is the 2022 Cy Young winner. He threw like, I don't know, 500 innings? I think it was like 230 innings that year, led the league by a lot in innings, and absolutely shoved. Actually, he's been very good for a while. Now, let me just make this big real quick. There we go. He's been very good for a while. This is him from 20 to 23, 21 to 23 rather, pre-Tommy John. 559 Ks is good, 1.08 whip, 3.14, and he led the league in innings by 28 over Garrett Cole over that same amount of time. So he led, not only did he lead the league in innings, he led him by about 5%, which is really, really good. He has been known as a workhorse dude who just goes out and trucks away, never a bead of sweat on his forehead, and he's going to give you 7 strong outings day in or day out. But something happened in 2024, and he has missed the entire season coming into this year with a torn UCL and subsequent Tommy John surgery. Okay? So, with Tommy John, there's some things we need. There's some common things that happen to a guy coming back from Tommy John, and we're going to check in and see how those things are faring and see if we can pinpoint what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about the scouting report on Sandy. This is how, when he is successful, when he is winning Cy Youngs and is one of the best pitchers in the league for 3 straight years, this is what he's doing. Very high velocity on both his 4-seam fastball and his 2-seam fastball, okay? He throws really hard. He's a guy who can routinely run it up to 101, 102 miles an hour. His average fastball was 97 plus on all of those years, including this year. And so using high velocity has been a calling card. That's a pure power guy. He also elevates a not great 4-seam fastball in terms of movement, but he throws hard enough. He's more of a sinker guy. He naturally throws a sinker changeup and like a sinker hard. He throws a power changeup that's diving, and he throws a power sinker that dives, but he is been willing to throw the ball high in the zone as well. So he has elevated well. He has basically said, hey, you can't just stay at the bottom of the zone with me. I need to elevate, even if my 4-seam isn't technically a big riding 4-seam. I'm just going to beat you with velocity. He doesn't walk people, historic low walk rates. So he just you have to hit the ball or you're not getting on base. And he commands the corners. He moves right to left, right to left, right to left, and just picks a side, usually against hitter, and just peppers that side. And it's been very good at staying out of the middle of the zone. And then he uses a consistent mix. Basically, you can't pigeonhole him in any pitch. He never uses any single pitch over 40% of the time. And for a guy who can throw 102, who doesn't just sit up there and pump fastballs, throws lots of sliders, so lots of changeups. He's a slider, changeup, 2 fastball type guy. That's also impressive. Basically, he's a guy who throws high 90s, who pitches like a command guy. So, what's not to like about that? Well, hitters didn't like it, but everyone else seemed to enjoy it, why things were going well. But like I mentioned, he had Tommy John surgery. So, what happens with Tommy John surgery from time to time? 1, sometimes your stuff is affected. A guy who's dealing with that a little bit right now, Spencer Strider. He used to throw high, he was like 98, 99 every outing. Now he's been like 95, touching 97. Velo's down a little bit. I believe it will come back. That was something I struggled with a little bit when I came back too. So like 93, 94, then 95, then 96. And it just slowly kind of came back as you kind of get used to throwing in major league games. That is not a problem he has had. His velo is exactly where it always has been. Actually, everything is kind of where it is. All movement profiles are fine. I checked the Savant. It all looks like maybe there's slight nominal changes, but nothing crazy. All that stuff is kind of there. I actually went and looked at Enoceris's Stuff Plus metrics on Fangraphs. This is them right there. This is his Stuff Plus for all of his years. Hopefully you can see this is kind of small. This is Stuff Plus from his 2023 to 2025. It's 110 to 108. That's not a change. That's not a big deal, right? So I'm like, okay, stuff is the same. Even each pitch individually is pretty close to what it was before surgery. So I'm not concerned about his stuff moving correctly. What I am concerned about is this little red box way over here. That red box, that's Location Plus, which is a model that is supposed to tell you how well this person is controlling throwing strikes and then commanding the zone after they throw strikes with a bunch of different metrics. It was 105 and now it's 93. Just a reminder, 100 is league average. So bingo, I think we found our thing that we need to dive a little deeper into. Why is his Location Plus so low? What happened to his command? Because like I mentioned in his scouting report, command is his thing and he needs command. Let's go and see how that has changed. I have some very interesting metrics here that I will try to go through very quickly for you, but bear with me, all right? Here's his command statistics. The red box is this year, okay? And this is first pitch strikes, it is paint, it is strike percentage, it is competitive location, and it is walk percentage overall of total guys you face. Now, let me tell you how these have changed and give you a little context on them. First pitch strikes is 4.6% below his career average, which is slightly above the league average, but still 5% less times he's throwing the first pitch of the at-bat for a strike. That is a major problem for a guy that is command-based, especially because it's at 58.6%, which is below 60. That is not good. Paint basically tells you when he is throwing, on average, how far away are his pitches from the edge of the zone, okay? So historically, he's been like 0.1, 0.2 inches, which means he's touching the edge with the ball. That's what that means. Center of the ball, center of the line is a 0. So if he's slightly off, he's still hitting the edge of the plate, and a negative number means it's off the plate, which is actually good. Now it's half an inch, which means the ball is just about not going to hit the zone. So he's a little bit farther off the zone, and when that happens, you get less swings and misses. It's actually twice as far as it usually is. That's also a problem. So his misses are worse. Go over to strike percentage. He's only throwing 61% of the time strikes. That is way worse than his career average. It's down over 6%. That is a lot. That's a lot. Got to fix that. And then we have competitive location, which, reminder, draw a circle 8 inches from the middle of the zone. It is everything outside of that big circle means it's a pitch that just isn't competitive anymore. And that's also the lowest it's ever been, even though it's only down by about 2%. It's low. So he's not getting chases because he's missing worse. And then his walk rate is up to 12.2%. He's walked 29 guys, I believe, in 51 innings, which is astronomically high for this gentleman. He usually walks 2 per 9-ish, and now he's up around 5. So his walk rate is way higher. He's throwing a lot of balls. And what that happens when you are a guy like this, who depends on your command to get people out, this is how the swings tend to get. So when they don't have to worry about everything being in the strike zone, they can bring you into the strike zone. And what he's doing is he's throwing pitches lower in the zone a little bit more, and those are getting shellacked. While before, he was getting hurt a little bit more high when he would throw fastballs not quite high enough, but was fine in the bottom of the zone. It's because he uses the edges of the zone so well. He is now not using the edges so well, so there's just a lot more pitches in this area. And when there's a lot more pitches there, it's much easier to keyhole you there and make you throw it there in order to get you out. Unfortunately for him, hitters like that. And the more guys who are on base, because you're walking them, means these hits hurt more and translate into more runs given up, which is why he has an 8.5 ERA at this point. That said, this is something that he stakes his reputation on, that he's worked really hard. Command and control are his calling card. It's something that's not there now. But if there's any person on the planet that knows how to get himself back to command mode, it's Sandy Alcantara. So I would not bet on him staying like this forever, and hopefully he can get a good 6 weeks or so in before the trade deadline so that somebody can get him and he can help them make a long run in the World Series. And that is my breakdown. That is my going deep. That is my breakdown of Sandy Alcantara. He's going to be okay. He's going to do the thing. And he's going to be old Sandy, I think, before we know it. It's just a couple adjustments away. All right, foul territory. I'm going to have to say, see you later. Thank you for joining us. Trevor May Baseball, we will be on you in just one moment. But right now, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to go live over on that channel. Once again, hit the little subscribe button if you are new here. We'd really appreciate it. And if you want to catch the rest of the show, more of the interactive side of things, I'll see you over there in just a moment. You have a great break. 2 minutes away, more Mayday. See you in a moment.